The Philippines announces it is rejecting all kinds of grants from the European Union or EU. Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano says this was based on a directive from President Rodrigo Duterte himself.
But with the President directive now, then we'll have to communicate formally to the EU Ambassador, His Excellency Ambassador Yesen, that, as of now, hindi tayo tatanggap ng aid.
He says Duterte announced this decision in front of the uniformed personnel and the Malacanang Press Corps Wednesday. Cayetano says the Philippine government will soon relay this decision to EU Ambassador to the Philippines, Franz Yesen.
It shouldn't affect our relationship, our working relationship.
Cayetano earlier said the EU might use agreements in line with donations as an excuse to criticize the Philippines on certain aspects of governance. Yesen tells Rappler, "I have seen some press reports but have not talked directly with the Foreign Secretary these past few days." The Philippines' decision comes after months of talks with the EU. The discussions began after the Philippine government confirmed on May 18 that it was no longer accepting new EU grants. Opposition Senator Antonio Trillanes met with U.S. Republican Senator Marco Rubio, a critic of President Rodrigo Duterte's bloody drug war. Rubio confirmed the meeting in his Twitter account Wednesday and said they discussed ties between the U.S. and the Philippines, as well as ensuring human rights in the administration's war on drugs. Rubio said in a tweet, "Senator Trillanes and I discussed U.S.-Philippines alliance, combating corruption, and protecting human rights amid their narcotics crisis." Trillanes left for the U.S. on October 15. Malacanang says it knew about Trillanes' U.S. trip but is not privy to the details of the trip. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella says Malacanang did not know whether the purpose of Trillanes' visit was to convince U.S. senators to persuade U.S. President Donald Trump to scrap his scheduled Manila visit in November. Abella hopes Trillanes did not give Rubio biased information during their meeting. Trump is set to visit the Philippines in November to attend the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Summit and related meetings. Rubio and U.S. Senator Benjamin Cardin of Maryland earlier introduced a bill seeking to restrict the supply of defense equipment to the Philippine National Police, which used to head the bloody war on drugs. After hours of discussing a government plan to replace old jeepneys with newer, safer, and environment-friendly units, transportation officials admit they have yet to map out a timeline for the rollout. The implementation will still be tested in pilot areas in Taguig City, Pateros, and Pasay City. The House Committee on Transportation called for the meeting with transport authorities following a 2-day strike. The operators and drivers were protesting the government's plan to replace PUVs 15 years or older. Transportation Assistant Secretary Mark De Leon says primordial to this PUV modernization is the route rationalization study. The study will determine the best mode of public transportation based on the existing and projected demand and use of commuters. Before the PUV modernization program can even be rolled out, the route rationalization study must be completed first. Land Transportation, Franchising, and Regulatory Board Chairman Martin Delgra says during a House briefing Thursday, "If we think of livelihood, the pain of hunger is strong. But do we understand that every day the commuter is sacrificing on the road? The commuters are the poor that we are helping." Asked how many jeepney drivers would be displaced due to route rationalization and PUV modernization, Delgra also admits his agency does not have the numbers yet. Amid criticism from lawmakers over the agency's apparent lack of preparation, Delgra says, "We are working in earnest. Even before the president announced, we've been pushing ourselves for an early timetable for the pilot implementation." Federation of Jeepney Operators and Drivers Associations of the Philippines, or FEJODA President Zenaida Maranan, says that while certain operators who have the capacity to run fleets won't find problems, it's the single operators who would encounter challenges. British Prime Minister Theresa May will appeal to European Union leaders at a crunch summit in Brussels to push forward deadlocked Brexit negotiations. May will urge her colleagues to start looking now at a future trade deal in a transition period after Britain leaves in 2019. The EU says there is insufficient progress on divorce issues to move on to the next phase, dealing with future relations at this summit, but will start internal preparations in December. May also published a letter on her Facebook page promising to make it as easy as possible for EU citizens to stay in the UK after Brexit. The British official said a deal on citizens' rights was within touching distance. EU President Donald Tusk warns there would be no breakthroughs at the summit. He says that while there had been promising progress, London needed to come up with more concrete proposals. A senior Facebook executive reveals the company's messaging app Messenger may have been used by Russian agents to influence the 2016 US presidential elections. At the Wall Street Journal's WSJD conference, Facebook's Vice President of Messaging Products David Marcus says a very small number of the 470 Russia-linked Facebook accounts may have sent messages directly to users. The messages are specifically designed to create divisiveness among people regarding pressing issues concerning them, with the end goal of influencing people's votes. Tech website Recode quotes Marcus, "My understanding is that it's a very small number." Marcus also says, along with federal investigators, they are still trying to determine the full extent to which Russian agents used online platforms and their various tools to influence the US elections. On November 1, executives of Facebook, Google, and Twitter will appear in a US Senate hearing on Russia's alleged interference in US politics.